professional bodybuilder and 7-time Mr. Olympia, Phil Heath.
In the kitchen, just wanted to go over some of the meals that I am currently eating here for the contest. First off is my egg whites. I usually get about 2.5 cups. It's roughly
That looks depressing as hell.
around 60-70 grams of protein, and I accompany that with a cup of rolled oats or a cup of Ezekiel cereal.
I think you learned the cereal trick from Jay Cutler. Basically allows you to get more food down a short period of time because it's more dense, basically, because it doesn't soak up as much liquid. So I kind of see why, if you're on a mixed diet, you're going to be having these sort of things. But I see here, looking at the label, almond, definitely not ideal. You're going to have the gluten within the cereal as well, so it's going to be useless, and the carbohydrates this early in the morning or any time of day perhaps is actually quite detrimental to human health. So we'll carry on and see what he's got to say.
I'll switch back and forth with these two. The cereal is a little bit different for this prep because it has almonds and stuff, and I've been trying to get in a little bit more fat.
When you just put a scoop in of, I don't know, butter or something, ghee, tallow, or anything, it's going to be better than eating almonds, which are full of oxalates. I mean, I think I did a video before about superfoods being bunk, and there were, I believe it was 30 to 50 milligrams of oxalate per 3, 4, 5 almonds. And that's the amount that is kidney toxic. So imagine this is just one little bowl of cereal he's having here. Not ideal.
But it's so dense that it has actually more carbs per cup than the oats. Usually I have a hard time getting in carbs, but eating cereal, I mean, it's pretty simple. So I usually switch that up if my trainer wants me to get in more. So a cup of the Ezekiel's.
It's an interesting example of when bodybuilders have been chasing macros rather than following appetite. Now granted, he's trying to achieve something which is incredible, having 4% body fat on stage on a massive 250 pound muscular frame is insane. It's unheard of. So he's going to want to track things, but at this point out, it's interesting how he's almost force feeding himself. This is probably a topic for another video. He might be trying to do some priming techniques, which is something I used to do back in the day prior to any bodybuilding competition.
Cereal is usually around 75 grams of carbs, whereas a cup of the rolled oats is about 64 grams. So I switch back and forth, like I said, accordingly. Next would be one of my least but yet most favorite is tilapia and yam.
Looks dry as hell, and I bet he doesn't use butter or any sort of condiments on it to make it that nice. Maybe some hot sauce or something, but God, that made me feel sick to the stomach. Especially with all the fibre content you're going to get in the sweet potato. I imagine he's eating the skin as well. Tilapia, dry, no fat, no really substantial amount of omega-3. A very dry, boring, depressing meal, in my opinion. I used to have these sort of things, so I can speak from much experience.
I do a lot of fish. I know a lot of people have been following me on Flex online, and I do a ton of fish, like toward the middle, throughout the end of the prep. Normally up to 5 times a day, but right now I'm only doing it once. The fish really helps with really thinning out the skin, and it's a lighter protein, so you can actually eat like.
So people have criticised him before for saying this. How can a food thin the skin? Well, the thing is, it's low in fat. It's a white fish. By default, you're going to be taking in less energy, less mass, less food. So there's that aspect of it. So you're going to hold on to less fat as a result of that. And, it's the same as starvation, effectively. Then the other thing is it digests very well, as he quite rightly pointed out. Now, if you're having 5, 6, 7 meals per day, you're going to want to have a good digestive system. You're not going to want to have a fatty steak 7 times a day. So I can kind of see his rationale here. So you can see, although he's obviously not following the carnivore diet like I am, he's thinking carefully about digestion, which is something which I quite admire. I have met him and spoken to him quite a few times, and he is quite sensible. He does address his health in a very sustainable and appropriate way. However, I don't think he's heard of the carnivore diet yet. So when he does, hopefully he'll stop by this video and look back in time and think, oh, this guy knew what was going on. You know, just toot my own horn here.
There's been times where I've eaten like up to a pound a day, but normally I'm getting around 12 ounces, and that's cooked weight, so roughly about 14 ounces. But with this, the yam, I started incorporating that a couple years ago during my carb up process, and I noticed that it keeps me really, really full. So I started using that just at the beginning of the diet, because I noticed that the minute I start dieting,
One thing to point out is I hope he's eating this food hot. The digestibility of food does seem to be impacted by the temperature of it, at least when it comes to carbohydrate sources. I notice myself, if I'm having, for example, if I was cooking apples, they would digest quicker, assimilate quicker in my body than a raw apple that wasn't cooked. So what I mean by that is, if it's cold, it's going to have more resistant starches. The fibre content will make it ultimately harder to break down. So in essence, you're going to be looking at processing the food somewhat to make it assimilate better, or at least quicker. Like I said, 6-7 meals per day, it's going to be quite useful.
Losing a lot of weight really fast, and this kind of keeps me, fuller longer. So especially like during like heavy back and leg days, I'll be eating this at least a couple times. So right now I'm doing just the egg whites and at least this meal like once or twice a day. All right, going on, we have steak and rice. I'm getting in, this is just 12 ounces of cooked steak with 2 cups of white rice. I'm doing white rice right now because honey lets me, but also it allows me to stay full, just like the sweet potato. Sometimes I'll actually take half of the sweet potato and half of the rice.
I always wonder what the rationale was for having brown rice versus white rice. I'd have always just had white rice. It's got less fibre, probably a bit less arsenic and toxins in it, I imagine. Tastes better as well, digests better. I can't see a benefit to having brown rice, at least over white rice anyway, if you are going to have these things.
And combine them, and that just gives me a little bit of different texture and whatnot. So the steak is really good for upping like my creatine and natural growth hormones and stuff like that. But
I don't know about that. There's a whole thing about growth hormones in meat that you eat. I'm not convinced it translates to what happens in the body. Now people talk about the MMA tested fighters that are out there. They'll be caught using clenbuterol in their blood. So they want to say it's because it's in the meat. It's not. They're adding it in. There wouldn't be detectable amounts once processed through the meat of the animal into the body. So that's a false moot point. There's no evidence to support that claim.
Inducing like more testosterone production. So I usually have this either before or right after I train, like post-workout, after I do a shake or something. Like usually about 60 to 90 minutes after I do a post-workout shake. I try to get this meal in, this particular one. Usually if I'm training during the day, I usually get this about meal 3 or 4, and then I'll do it again. Right now I'm doing 2 steak meals, so usually like the 3rd or 4th meal and then like the 7th meal. And I'll do that 7th meal without any carbs. I just do it with veggies.
It's interesting that he knows intuitively that he doesn't want to be bloated when he goes to bed at night. He wants to recover properly. Again, recovery is important. Probably doesn't describe it succinctly in this video, but he is conscious of not being bloated, especially after 7 meals. Your digestive rate decreases as the day goes on. It's obvious. I mean, you eat the same meal in the morning versus at night after, on the 7th meal. It's going to be much harder to deal with. So he's using his sensor, and that's good to hear.
Another thing, I don't really eat a whole lot of veggies in my diet. I probably should, but
no, you shouldn't ever, Phil. Never.
I usually don't do it a lot until I start really reducing the carbs. That's just something I've always done. But if I do have any carbs, it's usually just broccoli and red peppers. Next would be all white meat.
On the point of that, he's increasing vegetables when he reduces the starches, the carbs, the rice, potatoes. I suspect that's because he's lowering his potassium for his diet, and he's used to having X amount of potassium in his diet for his food. Then as the weeks go on, when he gets close to contest shape, he's losing out on that. His body's not quite fine-tuned itself to be as resilient to a lower potassium intake. Now, when you're having carbohydrates in your diet, your needs for every nutrient go up near enough. You know, you assimilate less what you eat, anti-nutrients in the plant foods, sugar, you know, glycogen. You need more insulin to pack in, basically, because you're eating more sugar, and you need more salt as well to kind of regulate the electrolyte balance of your body. I think having carbohydrates in the diet makes everything more confusing. Actually increases the margin of error with your diet as well, you know, because there's more to go wrong. So, as a bodybuilder, I can look back and think I wasn't doing it right. And of course, I did compete very successfully in my last show. I didn't win, granted, but I was in the best shape of my life with perhaps the least amount of dietary effort. As in, I wasn't starving, you know, I was on a carnivore diet. So there's that to factor in as well.
Chicken, again with white rice. Chicken is obviously is very high protein. You know, I've been doing it, gosh, since I've been bodybuilding, really. And obviously, Red Bear Farms, my sponsor, they've been so kind enough to give me an abundance of, you know, chicken every week.
Wish I'd get sponsored by some farm shop that would give you loads of free meat and eggs and dairy and stuff.
Usually roughly about 20 pounds. So getting in 12 ounces per meal isn't tough. So it's easy on the wallet as well. But I know a lot of people probably wonder why don't I incorporate brown rice? Well, right now with this part of my prep, I don't really incorporate the brown rice usually until like toward the end, because it'll slow everything down and whatnot. But I like using white rice. I've just noticed that for my physique, I can metabolize it really quick.
It's strange that he's noticed that the white rice is better for him. You know, he says feels better having it. When his body's more in a, you know, more rough state when you're 3-4 weeks out from a show, more susceptible to feeling crap. He wants to switch to brown rice. I don't see the logic here. Maybe I'm missing something. You know, why do you eat something that makes you feel bad, especially when you're peak condition?
Which is a blessing, because sometimes brown rice gets a little boring. But I'll change it up here and there. Like I said, I can change it up with, I can do all brown rice. I can do like a mix where I can do like white rice and sweet potato like after I train. Just good insulin spike and all that stuff. But I play around with all these different meals throughout the prep.
I'm not sure if you want a insulin spike or a bump. You're going to need a big spike if you're getting in, I don't know, 400, 500, 600 grams of carbs like you are there, Phil. So, yeah, it's a lot to tolerate. The pancreas won't thank you in the long run, I can say that much.
Normally, I might every now and again put in like a, you know, real extra lean turkey breast, ground turkey, but that's very rare because I don't really like it that much. I might throw like a little bit of it, like maybe 4 ounces with my egg whites just to up my protein a little bit if I'm reducing the carbs. And really the only other thing that I eat would be, I might spice things up a little bit, throw some avocado in with my fish.
No, don't eat avocados, guys. Eat butter, animal fat, egg yolks. Anything is better than, you know, a vegetable fat. Is it a fruit? I don't know. Someone comment below and tell me if an avocado is a fruit or a vegetable.
And do like all natural almond butter in between some of these meals, usually about 2 or 3 times a day, or just a handful of almonds 2 or 3 times a day. I actually weigh every meal, and you know, that's really important because as a pro bodybuilder, you definitely are, you know, using a portion control system. And with that said, I use my foods.
Notice here he's looking at meals in grams. He's not using calories. I had an informative video out a few days ago talking about exactly this. Bodybuilders have been doing this for decades. They've been looking at foods in protein grams, fat grams, carbohydrate grams. It's usually a case of upping the protein, lowering the fat, lowering the carbs to get into contest shape. And people look at calories as the overarching feature of this sort of practice. It's completely false. It's completely false.
Scale over there, and I weigh everything from carbs to proteins, fats, everything. I mean, I can weigh even soup on that thing. All I need to do is just type in a code, and it does it for me. But even if I lose the code, I can easily just know that I need.
Phil's not eating soup. This guy needs some proper fuel. I'll say that much.
12 ounces of cooked weight of pretty much all my proteins. So I just cook all my meals, and then I'll just portion them out that way. The good thing about the chicken is that it's already pre-weighed. It's already trimmed and weighed out for me by Redbird Farms, so I don't have a problem with that. It's just like the steak. Usually you can go to your, like, for me, I usually go to like Whole Foods or a butcher, and I'll ask for them to cut them accordingly, but sometimes it doesn't come out right. So I just could.
I'm ignoring what he's saying, but I'm just looking at his forearms and how he's like got them bunched up like that. It's nuts. It's like his arms are so heavy he has to put his hand on a chair. Bodybuilding goals.
Usually like 2 or 3 steaks at a time, and then I'll just spruce it up, because there's times where I may reduce the protein because I'm increasing the carbs, or vice versa because of how I'm.
Mass balance model, not calories. This is why I like Phil, and I've enjoyed learning from him. My bodybuilding sort of days. It does make sense. I'm not sure about the carbs and the rice and avocados, but it does generally make sense.
Looking during the prep, so that's really helpful as to be able to give me a gauge as to what's going on, and it also helps my trainer Honey Rambot out when he'll ask, so how many grams of carbs, how many grams of protein, are you weighing your food correctly? Well, I'll tell him, and then he'll make the changes accordingly. So every bodybuilder, or anyone really that's trying to really get gains inside and outside the gym, should have a food scale. I don't care if you are trying to be a pro bodybuilder or not. Every person that wants to eat healthy should have a food scale, no matter what.
I think if you've got any kind of physique goal, particularly like Phil or myself, where you're pushing the boundaries of what is naturally compatible, if you're someone with a fat-free mass index like myself or Phil that has exceeded natural limitations, you're going to be more meticulous. You're not going to leave that margin for error. The same thing is true if you're trying to get your body fat down to 4%. Your hunger signals won't really let you if you're just to eyeball it. I really don't think they would. Your body doesn't want to be 4% body fat. It wants to be a safe, healthy range based on what your needs are as a human being.
And also, for more details about all the meals that you just seen and the meals that I usually have during the prep, you can look into the diet log in the DVD.
I quite enjoyed that. Yeah, I remember watching this years ago, and I found it most useful because I was looking at it from the point of, how much food could I eat? I wasn't paying attention to digestion, how foods made me feel. And he quite rightly speaks to his trainer, Hanny Ramwood, about adapting his diet as time goes on, using him as the extra set of eyes to eyeball, work out, you look like this, you need to tweak this. It's effectively what a coach does. It's all good saying you can work it out yourself, but most people don't get into shape on their own. It does take an expert eye, at least when you're starting up. Now, granted, Phil has been doing this for decades at this point, I believe. This was an old video, but he still has a coach. He still listens to someone that is an expert in the field of nutrition, particularly with the aspects of performance-enhancing drugs, training, diet. That is quite an individual niche in terms of coaching, which some people seem to have great success with. Anyway, if you like this video, please like it below, leave a comment. Also consider subscribing. These videos are extremely well hidden by the algorithm, which is frustrating. But if you think this may be useful to someone that that is a bodybuilder, I put some different ideas across in this video. If you think it might help them, please share it to them. Hopefully that's useful to them anyway. So take care, guys. Cheers.